Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
This is the Edge of Liberty podcast.
Get ready for truth bombs, belly laughs, the kind of accent that turns car into a two-syllable adventure. Here's your host, Shaun.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to the SHR Media Network. This is the Edge of Liberty. It is the 9th of February, 2026. Thank you so much for being here. It's an exciting night for SHR. Not going to lie. For those who don't know, maybe some who don't care, we officially crossed 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, which was a huge goal for us for a while, and we thank each and every one of you. Tonight, we're going to talk about essentially how the internet has made everybody stupid. And I'm going to use examples from everything from the Epstein files and how that's made people dumb or shown how people are dumb, the DNI cover up with Tulsi Gabbard, how Newsom plays his social media, and all of it is designed around the fact that they know people are not going to put the effort in to look for an answer or look for facts or look beyond just stupid memes they put up, and you see it all the time. You see how many things get just spam reposted, spam shared. There's absolutely no facts on it today. And we're going to talk about that tonight. We're also going to talk about Japan. A lot going on in Japan. Obviously, we're all waiting to hear what's going on with Iran. We're going to talk about that. And Italy, but not necessarily for the Olympics, which, I know the Olympics going on. But first, let's get into the BS, if you will. And I saw this post. I forget which lawmaker it was. And she just overtly said, well, Trump was mentioned in the Epstein files 38,000 times, 37,000 times, whatever the number was. And I kind of laughed at that because I wrote an article last week or a couple days ago now, Sunday, on SHI Media, where I said, yes, he actually was mentioned that many times, but why don't you provide some context? Because, and I'm going to pull the numbers up right now. What you don't realize is he had 2 subscriptions to the Trump campaign addresses. Oh, that must mean he really likes Trump. No. He just was staying in the loop because he's Jeffrey Epstein. And as weird, gross, and disgusting of a human being that he was, he also knew a lot of big people and paid attention to the markets. So a vast majority of the quote unquote mentions of Trump in the Epstein files so far, admittedly, this is the ones we have so far, and I fully want them to release it all. I have zero issue with that. I don't want anyone protected in this. But let's be realistic about what's being shared and told. And this is, like I said, politicians do this on both sides of the aisle too. You have a couple out there that are honest about stuff, but you have a lot of them that will spam share stuff or say something like that. As I'm looking for the article, because I have a little technical issue going on my end with my little companion tablet here that I keep all my notes on, so I have to work around that. Here we go. So 2 of the You want to see the Carfax, you can go to shrmedia.com and you can look this up. I put all my sources in there, and I'm going to tell you exactly how I sorted this all out. You can search the articles called The Signal and the Noise. So 95% of the mentions of Trump in the Epstein file are because Epstein or one of his staffers, whoever, subscribed to contact@victorydonaldtrump.com or info@donaldtrump.com. So they were getting email blasts galore. And I use this website, and I'm going to put it up for you right now because I think that you should go there. I think that you should do the work as well. It's not just me. The website is called jmail.world. It's right there, or it's about to be right there on the screen. There it is, right there on the screen. It's hard to see, I know, in this mode, but it's there. It's called jmail.world. And what they've done is they've put every Epstein file in it and matched Google Gmail style. So if you're familiar with Gmail, you'll know how to work this, and you can go through it all. So I took this, cross-referenced it using two different AIs. I won't say which ones because they're not paying me, but you know both of them. One of them is rhymes with hat, CCCP, and the other one is a person in June's astrological sign. And it's made by a company that rhymes with Oogle. And I made them fight each other a little bit. And this was my method for it is, hey, pull all of these emails side by side. I was doing this from the files and tell me how many times, or tell me essentially to group it down. And it did. And I said, okay, how many times were from this email blast? And 95% of them were. And I said, okay, so outside the email blast, rhymes with Oogle. Yes. Reavers in the chat room. And I said, after that, I want you to show me how many times Epstein and other people were just discussing Trump. Not that Trump was directly outside of what happened at Mar-a-Lago, but emails in which they're talking about him as a president. They're talking about him, how the markets are being affected by him, yada, yada, yada. And that made up 1,000 emails right there, where it had nothing to do with any sort of activity other than how he affected the market, how he was affecting policy, et cetera, et cetera. Then you had another group of emails, majority of them by Larry Summers and Michael Wolff, both of them Trump haters at that point, where they were talking about him personally, but they were just talking about him essentially. They didn't like him, and they were just complaining about him. A lot like the friend that was cut out of the friend group, right? But there was nothing specific. Now, remember, Epstein was asked an email by Michael Wolff, I believe it was. Hey, and when this was when Trump was being elected the first time, if you have anything juicy on Trump, now's the time to get it out. And Epstein said, oh, yeah, no, I have it, and then never produced it. And then you have 25 emails. 25 emails discussing Trump, Epstein being kicked out of Mar-a-Lago. The most damning thing in there is Epstein at one point gets quoted just saying, yeah, I guess he found out about the girls. And that was it. There was nothing in there that says, oh, he found out about the girls and he let me keep going. No, he was pissed because he said Trump said he asked me to resign. Of course, he knew about the girls as he asked Elaine to stop. So you also have to remember the context. Way back when, this is way back before anyone had Google with it. We did have the 24-hour news cycle, but it wasn't what it was today. The internet still wasn't going crazy. It was a very less information transfer type of time. So is it possible that Trump knew something about what he was into? Yeah. Did he think that maybe he just hung around with, cheerleaders and shit? Maybe. And he was just bringing a lot of girls in and out of Mar-a-Lago and that was causing a problem? Perhaps. I don't know. I have no problem if you put Trump under oath to answer at this time. Ghislaine Maxwell pled the fifth today. So that's interesting because she could have blasted Trump, but she's also, you also had Ms. Giuffre say that Trump never did anything inappropriate. So as you break this down, the most quote unquote suspect emails, there's about a dozen of them. And there still was nothing that Trump was doing anything illegal. It was just that he booted him out of Mar-a-Lago and Epstein was pissed about it. That's what it really comes down to. And he threw out some allegations. Look, Epstein had every opportunity to throw Trump under the bus. The DOJ under Biden had every opportunity to throw him under the bus. The one you see right now that's not even part of the Epstein files is the allegation from 1994, 32 years ago. And they're presenting this like this is fresh information, where somebody called the open line Epstein line back in, what was it, 2020 something, 2020. The tip line was in 2020 and said that Trump did some inappropriate things. The FBI at that time followed it up and again followed it up and found out that not only was it not credible, but the woman who made the allegation has had numerous cases like this where she's tried to sue other people. She had a history of mental illness, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the one they keep trying to say is in the files, but it's not actually in the Epstein files. This came in an open line that anybody in the country could have called. But yet, you have politicians today, oh, he's mentioned 38,000 times. Well, yeah, because of an email blast. Like that's because he was signed up for 2 emails that sent out constant emails to campaign subscribers. So you break that down. Look, you can go do it yourself. You go to shrmedia.com. I have a link to that Jmail. You can use AI. You can figure it out because nobody's going to go through 38,000 emails by hand, which is why I used 2 separate ones and they both kept producing the same results. And I posted it all because this is what the internet has done to people. We've become so tribalistic that when something's presented to you with evidence, you don't want to hear it. And then the bots come out. We know Iran has unleashed a ton of bots over the last couple of weeks. That's been proven numerous times. So there's a lot of people from foreign countries making claims, just trying to sow dissonance within this country, just trying to play on the emotions that you get in this country. But yeah, you have politicians making these allegations and they're intentionally leaving out the facts. The facts is if you drill it down, there's nothing in there. There's no there. As we've heard in the past, it's a nothing burger. Because if it wasn't a nothing burger, if Trump was truly in the Epstein files, we all would have known by now. You've had numerous other people say that when they've encountered Trump at Mar-a-Lago, he didn't cause them any problems. Yeah, Trump had a weird dating history. He had a couple of divorces. He did some things that most people wouldn't do. Okay. But that doesn't mean he's done something illegal. And that doesn't mean he was a part of this. And remember, Epstein was flying when Epstein, the Lolita Express, as they call it, when all of that was at its peak, it was under the Clinton administration. It wasn't under Obama. And nobody was talking about this back then at all. It was not being talked about. It wasn't big news. When he was arrested in Florida, it was a local news story because of what it was, but it wasn't like a national news story. Nobody knew who Jeffrey Epstein was, except for the rich people who he was working with. And even then, there was an FBI report that was AP found that wasn't put out by the FBI. Like, it wasn't like, hey, we're making this all public. But the FBI said, yeah, we never had enough to really criminally charge him with what's being alleged, meaning Epstein. Does that mean Epstein wasn't a POS? No, absolutely. He was a piece of shit. But the problem is we're not following evidence in the world anymore. We're not looking for facts. We're looking for outrage. It's like a drug on the internet now. Okay. And people love to tap that vein, man. And it blows me away what people will accept as a reality without ever turning their brain on. I'm going to go to the next step. This is another one that happened this week. this was the whole DNI Tulsi Gabbard. The Guardian came out and said, hey, Tulsi Gabbard was hiding stuff, that somebody in Iran made a phone call to somebody in the higher power of Trump's inner circle. And this needs to be investigated. Well, she turned it over to the Inspector General. The Inspector General said, yeah, there's nothing there that we need to act on. There's not enough credible evidence, or whatever they say. Then they turn around and they blasted this out, because I always tell you they start shooting the most anti-aircraft weapons at the planes that are the most threatening. And all of a sudden, now it's Tulsi, because the election stuff is going on. So they put this out and they're acting like she sidestepped it. She dumped it. She didn't. She put it over to the Office of Inspector General, which is what she's supposed to do. By the way, the Office of Inspector General, who investigated this, was appointed by Biden. And this goes back to the 2019 whistleblowing bullshit. It's the same idea that you leak a bomb, you scream that it's a cover-up, you make all of these headlines, and then you find out it's completely not true. So last week they made that claim. Then on the 7th of February, 2 days ago, the Guardian was forced to amend the story. It turns out that the intercept that was being discussed this entire time was two foreign nationals gossiping about someone they think was close to Trump. So it came out. And of course, the media, the left, they all ran with it, saying, hey, somebody close to Trump is talking to the Iranians. Now, by the way, it is entirely possible. Thank you very much, Philip, for subscribing. It is entirely possible that Iran was calling somebody in Trump's administration trying to cut a backroom deal. That was my first thought when this story came out. I was like, oh no, maybe somebody over there is trying to save their own ass. And it does happen. Stuff like that does happen. If somebody in the higher power over in Iran knows what's coming and they're like, oh, I need to change this ASAP, then they're going to make that call. But that's not what happened. By the way, the Office of Inspector General Inspector her name is Tamara Johnson. And on June 6, 2025, she found the whistleblower complaint not credible. But you would think today, if you're looking at media, just like the Guardian did, if you're looking at social media, how quickly people just absolutely hit that spam reset button or repost button. It goes to show you that nobody's going to take the time. And the left knows this. They use the media inappropriately and social media inappropriately. And by that, I mean, they absolutely know how to throw something out so it looks bigger than it is. They know it's not big, and then they pull it back. But they pull it back quietly, or they don't say anything at all. And you're going to see that when we talk about the SAVE Act here after the break. And I got one more story. I'm up against the break right now. And then I'll come back. I'll wrap up this section. We'll go into the SAVE Act and how that's been being misrepresented incredibly as well. You're listening and watching The Edge of Liberty right here on the SHR Media Network. Thank you so much for being here. Please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It will help us out greatly. We did have a wonderful milestone this evening. We crossed over that 1,000 subscriber mark. So we thank each and every one of you who subscribed and has supported us for the years that we've been doing this. We're gonna release some information about that and just do a show about that here in the next coming week. But it's huge for us, and we really appreciate everybody's support because it's been pretty amazing. I'm going to take a break. When we come back, I will finish this up, and we'll move on into the next segment right after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome to the SHR Media Shop. This is not just merch, it is a statement. SHR Media is built as a rebellion against the mainstream. We deliver truth without a filter or permission. When you wear our gear, you are standing for liberty and unapologetic free thought. Every piece is a badge of support for independent journalism. Wear it loud, wear it proud. Support the mission and join the rebellion at the SHR Media web store.
Are you looking for a way to boldly express your faith and love for your country? And check out 7 Armors, the premier apparel company for patriotic men of God, where faith meets freedom in style. Our t-shirts are more than just clothing, they're statements. Bold, stylish, and meaningful. From timeless messages to modern designs, we've got something for every patriotic man of God. Wear your beliefs proudly with 7 Armors gear. Don't miss the chance to wear your faith and freedom on your sleeve. Visit 7armors.com today and join the movement. That's the number 7armors.com.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Welcome to the Reaver of Common Sense, where we cut through the noise of news and politics with a sharp edge. Tune in every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a refreshing dose of reality. We fearlessly tackle the tough topics with no nonsense, just pure common sense. Visit shrmedia.com to discover where you can catch the Reaver in action. He is here to amplify your inner logic. He may not always be polite. He may not always be refined. But one thing is for sure, he always tells it like it is. The Reaver of Common Sense.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Edge of Liberty right here on the SHI Media Network. Shout out to Thomas Jordan, I think it is, who's keeping our our viewership up. So thank you for being here, Thomas. I really appreciate you being part of the show. So to continue on with this conversation, there was another incident like this weekend, or incident. That sounds way more important than it really is. But there was another example this weekend by Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom's press office, which if you've ever followed that account, you kind of know what I'm talking about. Gavin Newsom's press office was responding to an allegation by gubernatorial candidate Steve Hilton that illegals are getting free health care in California, and they're actually living in Mexico and then coming across and getting care and then going back into Mexico. And Gavin Newsom just said this, and this is immediately how you know there's more to the story. Gavin Newsom put this out where he said, "This is false. In order to be eligible for enroll in Medi-Cal, you must be a California resident, which has one of the many qualifications." And then he just puts 2 links to the plan. And I said, that's kind of funny, except one of those is just to prove that you have a residence here. Well, to do that, all you need is a driver's license. So I started to dig into it a little bit. And again, you can go over to shrmedia.com, and I wrote the article on Sunday. All the links are in there if you want to do the work yourself. Most of you won't, who disagree with me, and I know that. But I started to dig into it, and yes, on face value, if you click on one of those links, you can see that it's not allowed. It's not that it's stopped. It's just not allowed. But if you dig into it, you start looking at, first of all you really need is a driver's license with a California address. And I'll tell you right now, they have what's called the Paris system in California. The Paris system is just a computer system where they can check addresses to make sure that 54 people aren't using the same address in Fresno to sign up for benefits. However, if you have an AB 60 license, which you are absolutely allowed to get in California if you're illegal, that bypasses the Paris system. So you no longer pop up as being at one of those addresses. You immediately go into a different shuffle. What is AB 60? AB 60 is the license that you get if you're illegal, if you can't get actual residential driver's license. So then the other thing that they said is, oh, well, we have fraud detection in California and, we blah, 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 blah. So I started looking it up. California has 300 investigators plus 250 staff. That's on the high end. That's 550 people who are responsible for investigating approximately 15 million members of the people that are on Medi-Cal. So even if you do commit fraud, it's now a numbers game before you get sought. Once again, Gavin Newsom, here's my quick answer. Oh, you can't get it because it's illegal. We say it right here on the thing. But then they actually provide the mechanism to sidestep it. And then there's no enforcement for those who don't. And again, it's in the article. You can go look it up. You can go verify it yourself, but I know most of you won't. And then the other thing Newsom loves to tie in, and I'm picking on Newsom because he deserves it. I have two reasons to pick on him here. He loves to talk about California being the fourth largest economy. Oh, we give more money to DC than anyone else, blah, 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 blah. Well, first and foremost, out of the $530 billion in federal taxes that we pay in California to the federal government, what is that? Where's my response for that? I got it right here. $107 billion subsidy comes right back to cover Medi-Cal. $107 billion. When you break down per capita for California versus the rest of the country, the average California contributes $20,000, $20,500 roughly in taxes to the federal government, while the return is only $13,000. So there's a $7,000 gap. I apologize. I was reading the wrong line for a second. But when you start breaking that down compared to other states are paying more per capita than California are, the individual. So even that argument's thrown out the window. And what's even more amazing about that is that doesn't include all of the other tax money that California gets from DC for roads, public safety, all this other stuff. So what Newsom did here is he ignored all of the other smoke. It was just, I'm just going to put up these two links and then his press office is going to retweet it and say, oh, this is false. But it's clearly very, very easy in California to get a driver's license. By the way, to get signed up for emergency Medi-Cal, all you have to say is if you go to the hospital and you're sick in California, all you have to say is, I intend on staying in California and I need treatment. And they'll put you on for emergency Medi-Cal right there. So that visit is paid for by taxpayer dollars. And I apologize because I had one more point to make on that. Maybe I didn't. Maybe that was it. It happens. But if you want to go, it's on shrmedia.com. All of the links are there. You could do the homework yourself. It's not that hard to do. And there was one more thing that Newsom put out. Oh, here it is. Newsom put out earlier today that 30,000 people, we did a poll in California, 30,000 people said, what's his name should be fired from the Trump administration. Steve, I can't think of his last name right now. It's not really important. The one nobody likes. I legitimately, Miller should be fired. And I said, okay, first and foremost, if you're doing a poll in the state of California where you have 10.5 million Democrats registered in this state, and you can't get more than 30,000 to agree on that, that's not really the flex that you think it is. It's not a flex at all. The numbers are actually kind of shitty if you think about it. But moving on. So, like I said, we talked about how quickly people just accept things at face value. And they will absolutely not look into anything. And it's sad. This is what the internet has done. We've expect every answer in 3, 4, 5 seconds on the internet now. Nobody wants to read. Nobody wants to do some sort of critical thinking to look beyond what the headline is or what this friggin' politician this week posted. So now we go to the SAVE Act. And the SAVE Act has been the same thing. Jersey Joe talked about this earlier, but I agree. They're talking about the SAVE Act like all of a sudden nobody of color would be able to vote. which is a complete lie, especially as we played last week. CNN polled themselves. 70 to 80% of this country is for voter ID. By the way, the Save Act passed the House today. It's going over to the Senate, where Chuck Schumer, who's fighting for his life right now politically, says, oh, it's dead on arrival. Well, the problem is Chuck Schumer's calling it Jim Crow 2.0. And as Joe pointed out earlier, that's just to get an emotional response. It's not. And when you have 70% of Americans agreeing on one policy or topic from both sides of the aisle, also Black and Hispanic approval, very high as well in the 60s and 70s, you're losing this argument against the people of this nation. And I talked about it last week. Why is voting such a big deal? It needs to be one of the most protected rights we have, because that's how we decide what goes on in the future. Then you had Jamie Raskin. This was, I actually have a video clip of this, because Chuck Schumer calling it Jim Crow 2.0. We've heard that 150 times, but Chuck Schumer, Jamie Raskin, Jamie Foreskin, as I like to call him, has decided he's going to drop a new angle to this. And it was something that was so unbelievably stupid. And he said it out loud. It blew my mind.
The SAVE Act has nothing to do with voter ID. They keep saying it's a voter ID law. No, it's not a voter ID law, which just says you bring ID with you to the polls when you go vote, which exists in a lot of states. That's not what this is. This says you've got to prove that you're a U.S. citizen. So you start with your driver's license, but now you've got to show that your driver's license matches your birth certificate, which it does not for 69 million American women who have changed their names. So they've got to show their passport, but 50% of Americans don't even have a passport. So this is a direct assault on the 19th Amendment and the right of women to vote. The SAVE Act has nothing to do with...
It's a whole angle. Jamie Raskin's whole angle on it. Women who've been married won't be able to vote because they will not be able to pass. As if women don't go and get their IDs updated. It's the most ridiculous argument on the planet. The bill specifically directs the Election Assistance Commission to provide guidance for states to handle applicants who lack specific documents. Now, remember, the SAVE Act is just saying you're going to go up, you're going to prove when you register to vote that you're an American citizen. And then when you go to vote, you're going to bring your ID. That's it. So it's not hard when you go to register to vote to bring your marriage license and your birth certificate. Believe it or not, they'll be able to figure it out. I'm not even going to get into the whole you need an ID to do 45 billion things every single day in your life. That's just the way it is. That's a reality. Okay. This argument here was to try to outrage women. Oh my God, I won't be able to vote if they no. And women aren't that stupid, which is why the SAVE Act has an approval of 60 to 70% in this country in modern day history. So if you want to talk about undermining democracy, as both Jamie Raskin and Chuck Schumer did, let's think about election denial from the left that has been thrown all the year that this would fix. This would actually fix. Yeah, we do have real ID, Jersey Joe. And Thomas Jordan, no, if you want to start your own show, if you want to come back in a week, I'm talking about that, you're more than welcome to. I appreciate the $4.99, but I'm not going to change my whole show because you're complaining in the chat room. Okay. There's a lot of other things that people highly approve on that Trump's doing that his overall approval rating may not reflect, but that's up to you. Oh, of course. Yeah, Thomas, it's funny. When I create my show and I do all my studies and everything and I get all my notes and I'm presenting all the information, then all of a sudden you want me to change the show to what you want to talk about? No, that's not how it works. That's not real life, son. This isn't your show. Hillary Clinton back in 2019 said, you can run the best campaign. You can have the election stolen from you. She repeated it numerous times, calling Trump illegitimate. Hakeem Jeffries in 2018 tweeted the 2016 election became more illegitimate the more we learned about it. And he used the hashtag fake president. Stacey Abrams refused to concede in 2018 the Georgia gubernatorial election for years, claiming that it was stolen. And Jerry Nadler stood on the House floor and claimed in 2004 that the 2004 election was stolen from qualified voters in Ohio. As I said before, I talked about some of the polls from CNN. This is from February, so this is a recent poll. 83% of Americans require a photo ID to vote. 71% of Democrats agree with the measure. 76% of Black voters and 82% of Latino voters want these integrity measures as well. So for Jamie Raskin and Chuck Schumer to cry, women won't be able to vote, and it's Jim Crow 2.0, what they're saying to the majority of people is you're too stupid to know what's good for you, and we know better. Despite the fact that the Democrats have cried many a times about securing our elections and making sure that our elections were secure. And now that we're trying to do it, they all of a sudden it's not a good thing. And once again, they want the headlines. They don't want you to look into the bill. They don't want you to look into the numbers. They don't want you to see who supports it and who doesn't. All they want to do is say, oh, if you support this, Black people won't be able to vote, women won't be able to vote, and get everyone outraged, because they know most people aren't going to dig down deep and actually look at the information that's so readily fucking available on the internet. All you have to do is look something up a couple times and verify that it's reflected in 2 or 3 different places by the same. Then you absolutely can verify that it's true. And then you go to the source document, something we say on SHR Media all the time. We have a shirt, 250 reasons to read source documents. That's our 250th birthday shirt that we're selling. You go to shrmedia.com if you actually want one. But yeah, read the bill, read the source documents. If you want to compare 2 different things, there's so many options for AI to help you do it, so you don't have to read a 4,000-page bill. But they're going to do exactly what Jordan's trying to do in the chat room. They're going to throw out a bombshell statement. They're going to expect people to take that at face value. And then they're going to needle down to certain points here and there. And they're going to have you want to talk about the conversation that they want to have versus the conversation that's actually being had. So we saw that with Tulsi. We saw that with the SAVE Act. We saw that. We saw a bunch with ICE. The whole ICE thing was absolutely fueled by this. And how many people from outside this country, like we said, foreign bots, were just reposting that stuff, and how many people would run with it. And it's because people don't want to look beyond the headline, which is very easy to do when you have, everyone's got one of these in their pocket. They get a cell phone. You can go look stuff up. You can do it in 30 seconds or less, no questions asked. And people will not do it. And it's sad, because if you looked a little bit further, you could be a little bit more educated. You could be a little bit more intelligent. And you won't look as stupid as you do in public. We'll be back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome to the SHR Media Shop. This is not just merch, it is a statement. SHR Media is built as a rebellion against the mainstream. We deliver truth without a filter or permission. When you wear our gear, you are standing for liberty and unapologetic free thought. Every piece is a badge of support for independent journalism. Wear it loud, wear it proud. Support the mission and join the rebellion at the SHR Media web store.
Attention, all patriotic women of faith. Yep, I'm talking to you, sis. Are you looking for high-quality, super soft apparel that reflects your love for country and your devotion to God? Look no further than Carry Girl Gear. Picture this, you rocking a tee so soft it's like being hugged by a cloud, all while showing off your love for God and country. Sounds dreamy, right? Well, welcome to reality, babes, because that's what we're all about here at Carry Girl Gear. We specialize in super soft tees, tanks, and more, designed specifically for the strong, patriotic women who proudly wants to carry their message of faith and freedom. When you shop with us, you're not just getting a t-shirt. You're joining a community of like-minded women who are proud to wear their beliefs straight on their tees. So whether you're sipping sweet tea on the porch or leading the charge for faith and freedom, do it in a Carry Girl tee. Because life's too short for stiff, boring tees. CarryGirl.com, where faith and freedom meets fashion.
Come listen to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show. Live on select and exclusive Tuesday and Thursday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Rumble channel, SHR Media YouTube channel, X, Twitch, Spreaker, and wherever great conservative podcasts are found. BZ, your conservative Sherpa, guides you through the maelstrom of Democrat, leftist, and globalist lies, chaos, deceit, and betrayal. Raised as a free-range child with dirt, stains, mud, and freedom, BZ broadcasts from North Idaho, comfortably surrounded by actual normal people. Jump into our plush, sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent chat room on rumble.com. Click on live chat to join. Now, with 37% more umbrage and 19% more bulbosity than previous shows, featuring delicious Liberty additives for the best in late-night conservatarian talk radio. BZ reminds you that with great beard comes great responsibility. No chinchillas were harmed, embarrassed, fat-shamed, or the focus of any sarcasm whatsoever in the making of this ad.
Welcome back to the Edge of Liberty Radio on the SHR Media Network. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. I am going to go international, talk about some news outside the States, but I thought this one was very, very interesting. Thomas Massey has been a weird beast. Has been for a while now. He's getting even more and more weird as time goes on. But he tried to say today that I never said I have 20 names, when clearly he posted that he had 20 names that were in the Epstein file. And Joe mentioned this earlier. He does like edging to fundraise, and I mean that like as the kids use the term edging, where he constantly tries to tell over and over again, I have this, I'm gonna do it, and he never ever does. So first I want to go to Italy, which if you would have told me that the biggest news this week out of Italy was going to be something other than the Olympics, I'd have called you a liar, because I just look, that's the biggest thing that was going on in Italy up until this. And when I first saw this, and the first thing came to mind was the movie Heat. But the second thing that came to mind is that they were filming a new version of the movie Heat, because it's just incredible. And hold on, give me 30 seconds to scroll down to the video. I had it here somewhere, and then as always, my fat fingers got me out of sorts. Clicked something that I shouldn't have, and welcome to my whole entire life, folks. Here it is. I'm going to put a video, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what's known about it so far, because there's not a lot that's actually known per se.
Guarda, hanno rubato il furgone. Guarda, Cristo santo, hanno fatto scoppiare in diretta. Guardali. Guardali.
Incredible. Absolutely.
Guardali, porca puttana.
So essentially what happened, and again, this is information because this just occurred, I think it was yesterday, on the Italian State Road 613 in southern Italy's Puglia region. And apparently it was as you could see, it was a war zone. It wasn't just like a smash and grab. 6 and 10 masked robbers used vehicles equipped with flashing blue lights to impersonate law enforcement and forced an armored vehicle to stop. Once they trapped the van and blocked law enforcement, they set up multiple vehicles across the freeway so more cops couldn't show up to help. They showed them using an explosive, as you saw, to blast the armored vehicle. It sent it airborne. If you saw the explosion, it was ridiculous. And I have no idea how this works, so don't ask me. But apparently there was some sort of phone-based security system that triggered inside the van, and that kept whatever was in the van protected. When the police arrived, a massive firefight erupted, and suspects scattered caltrops across the road, the metal spikes that flattened police tires. A bunch of escape, but 2 people are currently in custody. That's absolutely incredible. I couldn't believe when I first saw that was a real thing, but here we are. Next, going over to Iran. I'll talk about this briefly. Where obviously we're all on standby. The Armada that's out in the Persian Gulf and the Middle East is huge right now. I know they're having meetings and they're talking with Iran. Iran does not want to play ball. I was convinced that when I came on the air tonight that I'd be talking only about Iran, just how close it feels like it is to taking place. We've moved a ton of assets into the region. We've moved air defense into the region. I don't know what else. Obviously, nobody knows what else. There's a whole bunch of speculation. We've landed in Armenia a few times and brought equipment in there. There's been C-17s and C-5s and everything crossing the ocean nonstop for the last week. I know there was a meeting in Oman today. It clearly did not result in anything. The 4 conditions apparently the U.S. is looking for out of all this is all nuclear related. Stop enhancing their system. Because clearly these people who are running Iran, the Ayatollahs, are all batshit crazy. And we all know that. It's not a shock whatsoever. And Iran's making all the threats. And look, Iran's not going to do anything. They're so limited in their abilities. It's not even funny. A lot of this is just being a peacock, a disco chicken, as the kids call it, on the world stage. And I really hoped that somebody inside that regime was going to be smart enough to be like, hey, maybe we shouldn't keep being an asshole, but here we are. So it's only a matter of time, I think, at this point, unless they turn around and really start being smart. And first and foremost, stop killing all the protesters. I mean, that would be a great start, not murder thousands upon thousands of people who are protesting you, but also actually have a legitimate conversation and concessions, and stop selling oil to China and Russia, because they're not supposed to be doing that as well. And they are, which is why another tanker from the Russian Shadow Fleet was seized today that was sending oil from Venezuela over to China. So that whole thing is still going on. It's all tied together. At the end of the day, it is to hurt Russia, it is to hurt China, and it is also to change the regime in Iran. Whether you're for it, whether you're against it, that's the goal. Because the people there have had enough, the region's had enough, the world's had enough, and at some point you gotta make a change. And the people there want the change now. And that should be the motivating thing, is that you're helping those people out. And then just like in Venezuela, you're also making progress. And remember, the Iranian regime are not good people. They've slaughtered thousands of people outside their borders. They've sponsored more terrorism than any other country. And they're currently giving arms to Russia for its fight with Ukraine. So we'll see. Like I said, I was convinced today when I came on the air that something would have happened, and it hasn't. Now I want to go over to Japan. So Prime Minister Takaichi, if I say that wrong, I apologize, was elected Japan's first leader just a few months ago. She's an ultra-conservative. Essentially, Japan started to really loosen their border and who they were allowing into the country. And the Japanese people had enough really fast, like really fast. And they snap voted far, far to the right compared to where they were on the left. And the prime minister was elected. And then they had a snap election today for their parliament, or their version of Congress, if you will. But her party, the LDP, secured 316 seats, which broke all records in Japan. And they now held a supermajority with 352 seats total. She ran on a strong and prosperous Japan, kind of a Japan first model. That's kind of what she ran with. She said she was going to ditch the liberal shifts in the last few years. She was going to grow the military. Even though they have a pacifist constitution, they're going to build a military capable of deterring China, which you've seen China. You've seen what China's ambitions are. That's not a bad idea if you're the president of Japan. And if you've never looked up Chinese and Japanese history, there is a history going on there. This was incredible because after all this news came out and you had the vote for Takaichi, then you had the parliamentary vote today, or this week rather, where she won a super majority from the voters and the people. Sky News decided they were going to run this on their headline. And this headline reads, breaking, Japan's ultra-conservative prime minister is set to seize more power after an exit poll had her securing a big majority in the lower house. In which there's a user note essentially saying, how can you use the word seize where she just won an election and then took power with her party by what she wanted to do? She didn't seize power. She was elected appropriately. But this goes back to my theme for the whole show, that the media has this tendency to run these misleading headlines. Politicians have a tendency to run these misleading quotes and misleading tweets, and they constantly try to change the narrative to what they want it to be and not what it actually is, which is why media in this country and beyond has a lower approval ratings than herpes, because the media has a tendency to sell bullshit for a living. Sky News proved that with that thing. Seize power. Think about what that says to the people around the world. She seized power. We see that with military coups. We see that with other coups, non-military coups. But it's incredible to me that in this day and age, after WAPO just laid off, 300 people because of what media has become and nobody's buying into it anymore. You can like it or not, but that's the reality. Mainstream media is taking it on the face, and they're doing it a lot and with big numbers. Well, the opposite of big numbers, small numbers, I guess is the way to say it, but they're getting hammered. They're losing a lot of money. It was funny to me that Bernie, when the WAPO layoffs were announced, Bernie said, Bezos has this and he's got this boat and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, yeah, except for he was running a shitty news outlet that was reporting one-sided news, and people got sick and tired of it. People get sick and tired of the one-sided narrative. And what we see on social media is not a reflection of what the rest of the country sees. I tell people that all the time. When you're in social media, you're in an echo chamber. And yeah, I get caught in the echo chamber sometimes too. We all do. It's human nature. But you need to look beyond what you're being shown in a tweet, in a post, in a 30-second clip, because Jamie Raskin decided to go on CNN and say a bunch of bullshit, and they know they won't get challenged. And that's what happened with WAPO that led to 300 people, and Sky News did it today. What I did not know, so as I was researching, this is completely ridiculous anyways, but I'm going to share it with you because it just kind of blew my mind. Prime Minister Takaichi back in the day used to be a little bit of a baddie. Apparently, she was all about the rock music scene, and she was all about motorcycles when she was young. I didn't know that. I read a lot about her, obviously, when she was getting elected. And when Trump went over there and he had a meeting with her, I learned all about her policies. I learned all about her politics and her political history. I did not know she was a motorcycle riding, drumming, rock and roll gal. And it just made me respect her even more for everything that she's done, because I think that's kind of awesome. What do we have here? 6 minutes left. And of course, she has been nothing but gracious with President Trump. Another story that internationally, this one much closer to home, is Cuba. Mexico announced today, apparently, that they're going to stop sending oil to Cuba. Cuba has been a pariah state. Everyone knows that Cuba is Cuba, right? It's run by communists. It's been failing for years. People are trying to blame the U.S. sanctions on Cuba's downfall and not at all hold the Cuban government responsible for their actions. It's not like we don't sanction countries all over the world, and other countries sanction other countries all over the world. It's a very normal thing. It's what people do when you have a country who's not acting appropriately. Well, on the heels of Mexico saying that they're not selling them oil, Air Canada suspends Cuban service in response to aviation fuel shortage. And this is out of Montreal. This was open source intel that put this out from the Montreal Globe Newswire. Air Canada said that effective today is suspending its service to Cuba due to its ongoing shortage of aviation fuel in the island. Over the following days, the airline will operate empty flights southbound to pick up approximately 3,000 customers already at the destination to return them home. AM Canada took the decision following advisories issued by governments regarding the unreliability of the aviation fuel at the Cuban airports. It is projected that as of February 10th, aviation fuel will not be commercially available on the island's airports for remaining flights. Air Canada will tanker in extra fuel and make technical stops as necessary to refuel in the journey. Air Canada will continue to monitor the situation. So yeah, things aren't going well for Cuba right now. And look, Cuba's had plenty of chance through the years to change course, and the regime there just won't. And they get Russian, and they had Venezuela support as a stranglehold on those people. What people forget is prior to Castro coming to power, and Che Guevara, who the left still to this day wears the T-shirts like he wasn't killing gay people and a whole bunch of other people on a regular basis. Prior to that, Cuba was one of the biggest vacation destinations for the United States of America. It's a beautiful island. The people are wonderful. It's just the government is absolutely garbage. Yeah, I got time for one more story. Saw this story, and Jenny Tier, who is over at the Daily Wire, she's the immigration reporter. She reported this, and this kind of it's something that we talk about our border, and everybody talks about the illegals in this country, and you know how we should have more open borders and be more porous and blah 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 blah. By the way, we had the lowest percentage this last month of people crossing the border or being released into the country. But there's a story that she wrote that a registered sex offender paid smugglers to bring a child across the border from Honduras. There's the article right there. And was stopped from taking the young girl into his care thanks to the crackdown on sponsorship programs and unaccompanied alien children. According to the court documents, the child, who made the journey with her mother but was separated before crossing, was rescued before she ended up in the hands of the Alaska man named Doug Price, a registered sex offender who has a long rap sheet. Price paid roughly $5,000 to fund the mother and daughter's dangerous journey to the border through payments from his business, Black Bear Construction. He allegedly sent the funds to a phone number provided by the smugglers. Price also sent photos of himself to the mother and inquired about her daughter's quote-unquote status. This is another, and look, you never get caught your first time. And maybe not with this specific scumbag, Doug Price. But if they're getting caught for it, that means it's happened probably a lot of other times before. Like I said, I worked in law enforcement for a long time. Most people don't get caught the first time out. And most scams don't get caught the first time out. Usually it has to happen for a while before people can pick up on it. And it does make you wonder, out of those, 300,000 children that went missing under Biden, how many of them ended up in a situation like that girl was almost in? So when we talk about the borders, when we talk about securing our homeland, there's more reasons than just making sure that illegals aren't here. It's also the child and sex trafficking that we knew was going on. And hopefully now that girl is at least back home and not in a monster's hands. Folks, that's going to do it for me here on the Edge of Liberty and the SHR Media Network. Thank you so much for being here this evening. Thank you to everyone who showed up and chatted, even those who don't like me. I appreciate you being there. Thank you to our moderators for maintaining the chat room. I appreciate it. Thank you to the 1,000 subscribers. Honestly, folks, from the bottom of my heart, been doing this for a long time. We took a break on YouTube because the algorithm was just crushing us for a couple of years, and it's nice to actually be able to make some progress there. So thank you so much for sticking with us. Thank you so much for supporting us. It does mean the world to us. Please like and subscribe the channel. It really does help us out. The algorithm has not completely loosened up. It's still not entirely great, but it's a little bit better than it used to be. Check us out, shrmedia.com. You can follow me on X, the number 2, Against Tyranny. Please like all of our other shows and check them out every Monday and Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 on the East Coast. You have The Reaver of Common Sense with Jersey Joe every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast. You have the bulbous one, BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon right here on the SHR Media Network. And Tuesday and Thursday mornings, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon on the East Coast. You have Mission Ready Man with my pal Big E. And of course, you can find me every Monday and Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast, right here on the SHR Media Network. Thank you to KLRN Radio for simulcasting us and supporting us as well. We greatly appreciate you guys over there. Have a great night. I'll talk to you Wednesday.